Hey, everybody, good evening. Welcome to Thursday's edition of A Flawed Man of God. My name is Stuart Davis, the Flawed Man of God. I am a deacon at a small church that's outside of Richmond, Virginia. I'm not a pastor, I'm not a biblical scholar, I have not been to seminary. I'm not trying to get you to join my church or donate to any special cause. What I'm doing here is outreach, it's insight, it's some sort of glimpse into the eyes and mind of an average, what I consider to be an average Christian who has been a Christian his entire life and is just trying to make sense of things through faith and through scripture day in and day out. So if you're looking to start a relationship with God, if you're looking for more to this, for more to your existence than just what you experience here um, on this physical plane, welcome to the program. You're the entire reason I started this show in the first place. If you are just somebody who likes to listen to Christian content and wants to participate or just listen in, again, welcome. This channel is all about Christian content and talking about different things that affect us as Christians, which is everything, right? We're just like anybody else. We just believe that we believe in God, and God came and the form of man as Christ died, was resurrected 3 days later. Good Friday's right around the corner, like literally tomorrow, and he died for our sins, and that is incumbent on us to lead a life as best reflecting of Christ's teachings as possible, and try to get others to do the same. Want everybody to get into heaven. A big old party. So welcome tonight. Welcome tonight. And like I said, it's the Thursday before Friday, the Good Friday, the best Fridays, the most goodest Friday. And with that said, we're going to close out numbers tonight. Good morning, Fig. How's it going? We're going to close out numbers tonight, and then we can look towards Deuteronomy. And like I said early in some of these Bible readings, Leviticus is difficult. Leviticus is a difficult book to get through because very wordy, very dry. You've heard it from me before. And Numbers is not very different, but Numbers does mix more of a smattering of narrative and eventfulness in there, which we've seen, especially here towards the end. And that's how we're going to end it. We're not going to end it with rules, regulations, or any of that stuff. We're going to end it with some content, with some story time, right? Story time. So just as a look back on this week. Sorry, I wasn't here yesterday. I had a meeting that ran long, and I just didn't feel like getting home and rushing, trying to throw everything together and get on here tonight or yesterday evening. I just figured I'd give it a miss. I know I haven't been as good. This has turned into a very busy season between softball season on Mondays, my son's soccer on Fridays, and if something comes up in the middle of the week, then that's what it is. So, oh well. But Tuesday we did have Thaddeus on and representing the Orthodoxy. Hopefully, y'all got something out of that. I certainly did. I was pleasantly surprised that the Orthodoxy, there is more to the Orthodoxy than I originally thought. I thought it was very much Catholic in many respects, which, Catholicism is what it is, but, we don't need two Catholicisms. Yeah. But that's what it seemed like. It seemed like they were just Catholics who didn't recognize, who had their own Pope. Or maybe a little bit more based in antiquity, but it isn't. There are differences. And while Thaddeus spoke on parts of Catholicism that maybe he didn't know enough about, I think he did a good enough job trying to give us the perspective of what an Orthodox Christian sees when he looks at Catholicism. And he came from a Protestant background, and I know that he nailed that pretty well. I think he nailed that pretty well. So it definitely showed. I definitely want to have him back on the show to talk about maybe more Orthodox issues, but also Bible, his Bible college experience, because that seemed to shape a little bit of who he is. So good on Thaddeus. Big round of applause for him for coming on here and talking about it. I know that can make people nervous. I know I had my own invite to a show or something, and it was really weird. And I talked about that on Tuesday. Still just feels really weird. How can you describe the Trinity and then say that the Trinity doesn't exist? Just weird. So, with that said, with that said, let me pull up numbers. All right. So we're going to do chapters 34, 35, and 36, the last three chapters of um chapters of Numbers. Fig says, "Yes, I was shocked at how different Orthodox was." Now, mind you, me too, Fig. Mind you, that we are just getting one person's perspective, but it seemed a lot more knowledgeable, a lot more open, um, than what you run into on Twitter with the ortho bros. And like he said, a lot of times they're just random folks who've converted, but don't really go to an Orthodox or have an Orthodox church that they go to. They're just kind of floating out there in the internet spheres and shaming everybody who isn't Orthodox. But and also, again, what you see is a positive ambassador for that faith. And of course, there are bad actors everywhere. That's why I try not to define the faith by the bad actors. If that was the case, none of us should be. And that actually, so now I'm going to get off on a get sidetracked, but I'm gonna let myself get sidetracked because I thought about bringing it up today. So I saw there was an article in Yahoo today about um, Supreme Court coming on, and while they're discussing abortion, that there are Christians that are trying to communicate that you don't have to be pro-life to be a Christian. And this was like some sort of attempt to describe a grassroots movement. And they were interviewing people who were. And they found one of the subjects. In fact, it was one of the ladies that they started the article off talking about. She said she was very pro-life, and then she found out it's just a political issue. And that's what steered her entire change to progressive. Oh, Fig, I've seen it on both. I've seen Protz specifically, and I give Lutherans a lot of credit, but a lot of Lutherans go after Catholics. Avas go after Catholics. Avas go after Presbyterians. Avas go after Lutherans. Anybody. So the Anabaptists, people like, and I guess that's the closest doctrine I get to. Anabaptists like me who feel like you need to accept Christ, have a knowledge and understanding and a will of faith to be baptized before you're baptized. There are folks who adamantly go after Lutherans and Catholics and probably the Orthodoxy over baptizing babies. They don't think that counts because a child does not understand at that point. I've seen the other side go after it. Like I said, it's a circular firing squad, and I hate it. I hate it when I see it because it's not the hill. All those things are not the hills for us to die on. But and these are even some issues that I agree with, like when we talk about predestination and universal election. I don't really think universal. I don't think universal election makes sense in the grand scheme of things, because why would God send somebody determining and willing that person to receive eternal damnation? I don't get that. That doesn't seem to coincide with any of the teachings of the Bible, but folks believe that. And okay, I just think that's incredibly depressing when you have a kid that you might be bringing somebody a being into the world that doesn't have a chance because God didn't give them a chance. Fig. I'm not. Fig says I'm non-denominational because I don't want to be bound by the rules of man. Yeah, and that's kind of where I land on things. Now, I respect Catholics and the Orthodox and everything. Some people thrive in that structure. You need that structure, and I probably would too in a way. But that structure and that accountability, or that makes you feel more secure in your faith that you have that institution there, right? But again, as we've talked about, it's a double-edged sword. Being in a small church, being non-denominational, that opens yourself up because you don't have that infrastructure behind you. But at the same time, you're also free of that infrastructure if it's failing you. And it does, and from time to time. So again, Fig, hey, I'm right there with you as non-denominational. I love it. And I think it gives us more fluidity in navigating a lot of the dogma and doctrines of the different sects of Christianity without being tied into them. Of course, it opens us up to a lot of ridicule by those folks too. So, as I found out, we're just Baptists after all, according to the Catholics and the more closely aligned to the papacy Christian Protestant sect. But I know we're not, and God knows we're not. So that's all that matters. So, but yeah, it's all over the place on Twitter. But Orthodox can come at you hard. Orthodox folks on Twitter can come at you real hard. Same thing with the Catholics. And again, I love those Lutherans so much, but they can do the same thing. In fact, some of the first tussles I got in were with the Lutherans, but they're a punchy bunch, and I think there's something to respect in that they are willing to hold dear the values and the faith that they have, and hold on to it. And they've had their run-ins. So Fig says God himself should be our infrastructure. Amen. The way, the truth, and the light, right? Anyway, so getting back to that. So this was it was kind of a non-denominational person or evangelical person that they were talking about. The lady that that was doing the interview. She said, I was very pro-life. I was very much, this, but I found out it's just a political talking point. It's just, being a Christian means being a Republican. And at that point, I'm like, all right, well, no wonder you're lost now because you were lost then. And part of that is not that person's fault. Part of that is the culture that we've created within Christianity. And it's a big problem in conservative circles. And I align politically as a conservative. But at the same time, my alignment first comes to Christ, right? Conservatism is not always going to align with Christianity. It's not. There are going to be some times where we have to be willing to realize that it's not the way that God wants us to be. And we're going to stumble in some capacities. But to say that your stance on abortion is merely a talking point for the right or the left, I mean, if we want to be fair, the right or the left, means that your principles aren't really defined in much of anything. I'm getting an internet issue. Okay. Your principles aren't based in Christianity. And that's your problem, that you didn't do the necessary research to understand why you believe something. And it's also the fault of your congregation, your leadership there, that it wasn't correctly defined. But you gave it up that easily. Well, guess what? If seeing your beliefs used as a political tool is what makes you abandon it, I worry that you're not a Christian at all. Because when the next time a Christian value that you have comes in front of you and shows you that it can be used poorly, and it has been, all of Christianity has been used poorly in one way or another throughout history, what are you going to do? Abandon it? People misuse religion all the time. People misuse faith, and not only the false ones out there, but also the correct ones. We've seen it throughout history. It's been bad. So, um, yeah, I don't even know what got me on that. I think it was something you said, but it needed to be said. So thank you. Thank you for bringing it up. I'm eventually that'll eventually come up when I get the panel on for to discuss abortion. I'm at least going to have. That was the thing. That was one of the topics I brought up that I want Nick on the show for, and but again, that's going to take some planning. I'm not getting him right now because while this Amber Heard Johnny Depp show is on, he's going to be wasted in between. He's just going to be wasted. I can't imagine. We're going to get more of very tired Nick on the live streams like he was on the Rittenhouse trial. So off topic, back on the topic. Getting in here to Numbers chapter 34. Boundaries of Canaan. The Lord said to Moses, command the Israelites and say to them, where you enter Canaan, the land that will be allotted to you as an inheritance is to have these boundaries. Your southern side will include some of the desert of Zin along the border of Edom. Your southern boundary will start in the east from the southern end of the Dead Sea, cross south of the Scorpion Pass, continue on to Zin, and go south of Kadesh Barnea. Then it will go to Hazar Adar and over to Asmon, where it will turn, join the Wadi of Egypt, and end at the Mediterranean Sea. Your west boundary will be the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. This will be your boundary on the left. Very easy. Hey, the sea, it's the boundary. For your northern boundary, run a line from the Mediterranean Sea to Mount Hor, and from Mount Hor to Lebo Hamath. Then the boundary will go to Zedad, continue to Ziphron, and end at Hazar Enan. This will be your boundary on the north. For your eastern boundary, run a line from Hazar Enan to Shechem. The boundary will go down from Shechem to Riblah on the east side of Ain and continue along the slopes east of the Sea of Galilee. Then the boundary will go down along the Jordan and end at the Dead Sea. This will be your land with its boundaries on every side. And so there we see. And I think this is part of the start of where we see issues with the Jews in Israel and their arguments with the Palestinian groups about where the settlements of Israel should be, because I think it all starts with this layout as defined by God, where it should be. Now, whether they are right or wrong, I don't know. I don't have access to those texts or whatever the scholars are using or making up. That's on them. They've got their own issues because they deny Christ. Moses commanded the Israelites, assign this land by lot as an inheritance. The Lord has ordered that it be given to the 9.5 tribes, because the families of the tribe of Reuben, the tribe of Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh have received their inheritance. These 2.5 tribes have received their inheritance east of the Jordan, across from Jericho toward the sunrise. The Lord said to Moses, these are the names of the men who are to assign the land for you as an inheritance: Eleazar the priest and Joshua son of Nun. Yes, my boy Joshua. And appoint one leader from each tribe to help assign the land. These are their names, because of course it wouldn't be fair and it wouldn't be right if Numbers didn't throw this at me on the last night that we cover it. Caleb son of Jephunneh, from the tribe of Judah. Shemuel son of Amihud, from the tribe of Simeon. Eladad son of Kislon, from the tribe of Benjamin. Buki son of Jogli, the leader from the tribe of Dan. Haniel son of Ephod, leader from the tribe of Manasseh, son of Joseph. Kemuel son of Shiftan, the leader from the tribe of Ephraim, son of Joseph. Elizaphan, son of Parnak, the leader from the tribe of Zebulun. Patiel, son of Azan, the leader from the tribe of Issachar. Ahihud, son of Shalomi, the leader from the tribe of Asher. Pedahel, son of Amihud, the leader from the tribe of Naphtali. These are the men the Lord commanded to assign the inheritance to the Israelites in the land of Canaan. chapter 35, towns for the Levites. On the plains of Moab by the Jordan, across from Jericho, the Lord said to Moses, command the Israelites to give the Levites towns to live in from the inheritance the Israelites will possess, and give them pasture lands around the towns. Then they will have towns to live in and pasture lands for the cattle they own and all of their other animals. The pasture lands around the towns that you give the Levites will extend 1,000 cubits from the town wall. Outside the town, measure 2,000 cubits on the east side, 2,000 on the south side, 2,000 on the west, and 2,000 on the north, with the town in the center. It sounds like a cross. They will have this area as pasture land for the towns, unless he's describing a circle or crossing a circle. The cities of refuge. These are important. And I like the idea of this. Obviously, it's a good idea because God said 6 of the towns you give to the Levites will be cities of refuge to which a person who has killed someone may flee. In addition, give them 42 other towns. And all you must give the Levites 48 towns together with their pasture lands. The towns you give the Levites from the land the Israelites possess are to be given in proportion to the inheritance of each tribe. Take many towns from a tribe that has many, but few from one that has few. Makes sense. Yeah, God's super sensible here. Then the Lord said to Moses, speak to the Israelites and say to them, when you cross the Jordan into Canaan, select some towns to be your cities of refuge, to which a person who has killed someone accidentally may flee. They will be places of refuge from the avenger, so that anyone accused of murder may not die before they stand trial before the assembly. These 6 towns you give will be your cities of refuge. Give 3 on this side of the Jordan and 3 in Canaan as cities of refuge. These 6 towns will be a place of refuge for Israelites and for foreigners residing among them, so that anyone who has killed another accidentally can flee there. If anyone strikes someone a fatal blow with an iron object, that person is a murderer. The murderer is to be put to death. Or if anyone is holding a stone and strikes someone a fatal blow with it, that person is a murderer. The murderer is to be put to death. Or if anyone is holding a wooden object and strikes someone a fatal blow with it, that person is a murderer. The murderer is to be put to death. Murderer. The avenger of blood shall put the murderer to death. When the avenger comes upon the murderer, the avenger shall put the murderer to death. And if anyone with malice aforethought shoves another or throws something at them intentionally so that they die, or if out of enmity one person hits another with their fist so that the other person dies, that person is to be put to death. That person is a murderer. The avenger of blood shall put the murderer to death when they meet. I was thinking of that Saturday Night Live skit with the murder dirter. That's off topic. But this is the thing I like. You set up cities of refuge. So somebody accused, we have here in America, we have due process, or at least the assumption of due process, or the illusion of due process, the theory of due process. Sometimes it works, sometimes not so much. But here, this is a person who has done something, in most cases, murder or an accidental slaying. I can imagine, they have to have somewhere to flee so they can get their due process, so they can get a fair trial, so they can get that fair shake. And I like that idea. Because one of the things we talk about is, we think of folks who are accused of a crime and put in jail, and they stay in jail until they are either acquitted or convicted. But if they're acquitted, they lost all their life in there. Whereas when you offer somebody a sanctuary, a place to get away, they're able to live somewhat, and not in a prison, but at least in a town. So I think that's fair. And they're talking about what they're talking about is aggravated murder with a weapon or with your fists. I'm assuming that if the strike is accidental, like you didn't intend to strike somebody with it, like they just got in the way and you knocked them over with a pole or something like that, caused them to be stupid and die. Then that's different from what they're talking about. What they're talking about is hitting somebody with a weapon, metal, wooden, or otherwise. Or if you're Samson, the jawbone of an ass, not an ass bone. I guess kind of an ass bone. We'll talk about that later when we get there. But if without enmity, someone suddenly pushes another. Wait, yeah, okay. But if without enmity, someone suddenly pushes another or throws something at them unintentionally, or without seeing them, drops on them a stone heavy enough to kill them and they die, then since that other person was not an enemy and no harm was intended, the assembly must judge between the accused and the avenger of blood according to these regulations. The assembly must protect the one accused of murder from the avenger of blood and send the accused back to the city of refuge to which they fled. The accused must stay there until the death of the high priest who was anointed with the holy oil. But if the accused ever goes outside the limits of the city of refuge to which they fled, and the avenger of blood finds them outside of the city, the avenger of blood may kill the accused without being guilty of murder. The accused must stay in the city of refuge until the death of the high priest. Only after the death of the high priest may they return to their own property. Okay, so basically kind of giving you a timeout because the high priest is old, right? We assume they're old. Once they die, you can go back. Otherwise, this is where you live. It's not necessarily a prison, but don't leave. Or if you leave with the understanding that the avenger can kill you, can come and kill you. I wonder if you're allowed to defend yourself in that case. That's a good question. This is to have the force of law for you throughout the generations to come, wherever you live. Anyone who kills a person is to be put to death as a murderer only on the testimony of witnesses, but no one is to be put to death on the testimony of only one witness. Do not accept a ransom for the life of a murderer who deserves to die. They are to be put to death. You can't buy your way out of it. Do not accept a ransom for anyone who has fled to a city of refuge and so allow them to go back and live on their own land before the death of the high priest. Okay, so you can't buy your way out of your punishment. Do not pollute the land where you are. Bloodshed pollutes the land. An atonement cannot be made for the land on which the blood has been shed, except by the blood of the one who shed it. Do not defile the land where you live and where I dwell, for I, the Lord, dwell among the Israelites. I live with you guys, right? So, all right, murder's bad. It's the most evil thing, right? It's pretty much the first thing that we see aside from just disobedience to God. But we see Cain kill Abel. God detests this, and because of that, he doesn't want his people participating in it. But he establishes rules because it's going to happen. People are going to get angry. People are going to act poorly. Sometimes it'll be an accident. Sometimes it isn't. But don't tolerate murder, and that's basically what these last few verses mean. Don't tolerate murder. Because if you do, well, that's how you end up with societies like we have today. And probably societies that they had back then. All right. Ooh, it's a nice quick chapter here. Chapter 36. Inheritance of Zelophehad's daughters. Okay, if you don't remember Zelophehad, he died and he only had daughters. And they wanted to split up his inheritance among the males outside of the immediate family. The women got together and the women's got together and said, "Hey, look, we understand that, we don't get inheritance rights the same as the men do. However, there are no men here, and now people are trying to descend on our inheritance, basically, when we should have it." And a decision was made. So now we're going to go back and determine that, because the determination was going to be once you get to the promised land, there's going to be a divvying up of things. So here's how it all shakes out. The family heads of the clan of Gilead, son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, who were from the clans of the descendants of Joseph, came and spoke before Moses and the leaders, the heads of the Israelite families. They said, when the Lord commanded my Lord to give the land as an inheritance to the Israelites by lot, he ordered you to give the inheritance of our brother Zelophehad to his daughters. Now, suppose they marry men from other Israelite tribes, then their inheritance will be taken from our ancestral inheritance and added to that of the tribe they marry into. And so part of the inheritance allotted to us will be taken away. When the year of Jubilee for the Israelites comes, their inheritance will be added to that of the tribe to which they marry, and their property will be taken from the tribal inheritance of our ancestors. Then the Lord's command, then at the Lord's command, Moses gave this order to the Israelites. But the tribe of the descendants of Joseph is saying is right. This is what the Lord commands for Zelophehad's daughters. They may marry anyone they please as long as they marry within their father's tribal clan. No inheritance in Israel is to pass from one tribe to another, for every Israelite shall keep the tribal inheritance of their ancestors. Every daughter who inherits land in any Israelite tribe must marry someone in her father's tribal clan, so that every Israelite will possess the inheritance of their ancestors. No inheritance may pass from one tribe to another, for each Israelite tribe is to keep the land it inherits. So, do we seeing this would be an interesting legal question. Are we seeing the first example of precedence? The precedence of what is discussed with Zelophehad's daughters becomes the rules going forward, which is good. This is a good thing why God is here, and in this particular time, God is here and very present with the Israelites. He's helping them, guide them. Right? You've got questions, we've got answers. Right? He's Google. He's Google for justice and righteousness, and just general guidance. Hey, what should we do if it's a difficult enough question that Moses can't answer it? Ask God. Or once they move into the promised land, if it's too much for what's his face, the priest, and Joshua, there you go. Fig says, you're worse than a murderer if you tolerate their actions. Yeah. I mean, at least as guilty as them, right? If you tolerate them. Because, and yeah, worse in the case that now you're only promoting and encouraging more murder because you tolerate it. So now you're not just harboring one murderer, you're encouraging more of that action. So yeah, no, I think that's very poignant. So the Zelophehad's daughters did as the Lord commanded Moses. Zelophehad's daughters, Mala, Tirzah, Hogla, Milcah, and Noah. And Noah's a boy's name. Married their cousins on their father's side. They married with the clans and descendants of Manasseh, son of Joseph, and their inheritance remained in their father's tribe and clan. These are the commandments and regulations the Lord gave through Moses to the Israelites on the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho. And on that note, we will close Numbers. I hope you've enjoyed Numbers, dry parts and all. I think it's very much it's a good look. Like that's what Exodus and Leviticus and Numbers and Deuteronomy. Well, all of the Pentateuch really does a good job is kind of looking at the origins of not just the Israelites, but us as in civilization, us as mankind in general, and why the expectations were there throughout the Old Testament, and why and foreshadowing of why they point towards Christ's coming, and I think that's very helpful. So, with that said, again, I don't stream on Fridays. I would normally really make an exception for Good Friday, but I've also not had much Friday movie night time with the family movie night with the kids because of the soccer stuff. That's kind of late in the afternoon, late in the evening, and so I'm probably still gonna skip out on it. Though it would be good. It would be good. Anyways, with that being said, go to church, you heathens. It's Easter this weekend. Good Friday is upon us. Good Friday. Oh crap! Where is that? Hold on. There's a really good. There's a really good quote that I shared on Twitter today. Now I got to pull it up. Pull it up. Where's Twitter? Let me read this real quick. We got some thunder coming in. Looks like we got storms are coming. Here we go for Thursday. Tonight a table, tomorrow a tree. Tonight they bind him, tomorrow we're free. There you go. It's a solemn time. In some ways, it's a joyful time. In some ways, it's very sad. It's very sad that the world is in a constant state where Christ's sacrifice was necessary, and what he had to do and endure was something that he rather wouldn't have done. But he knew what he had to do, and because whether you want to view him as Big Brother because of his aspect of the Trinity or whatever you want to, or whatever, or if you want to do it more likely, God the Father looking down there for his kids, sacrifice, deep, painful, torturous sacrifice, as an example, as whatever you want to call it, the deep magic, like in the Chronicles of Narnia, however you want to refer to it. The example and the actions that he put forward were for us, and it is deep. It is very deep. But through that, we have salvation. And like I said, I think that's salvation, past, present, and future. And it's something that we should all understand, respect, and revere. As many things. People want to talk about, what's Christmas, Easter, the pagan holidays. Not what they represent. Not especially since Easter is not a pagan holiday. This happens around Passover, during the Passover time period. So what we've just marked is the best way to mark it, I think. But again, with that said, everybody, if you don't have a church that you belong to, maybe find one, or do some deep reflections at home. Pray. Like I said, I'll always encourage you to get it to continue, if you haven't found a community of Christians in a church that can feed you spiritually correctly and give you that, plug you in to a home away from home. So, Fig said, "I want more storms. I love a thunderstorm. Scares the willies out of everybody else in this household. Me, I grew up on an old country farm where I would go. Dad would invite me out on the front porch, and we would watch the thunderstorms roll through. And those memories, more than many others, stick in my mind, and I find it somewhat calming. Me too, Fig. Thunder's something beautiful. Thunder is something beautiful. So, everybody on this night, remember what's coming on tomorrow. Remember what happens this weekend. And with that said, I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Me and Eric Rollon coming at it again. And in the meantime, be safe, be good. God bless, Godspeed.